As the first session we have heard, I was more impressed about the presentation and the personal and his personality. We every day in our classroom repeat one thing, that is education starts in the womb and ends in the tomb. And I was surprised that a question came up of Chat GPT and the answer was given from the dais. That is known as education that does not stop. It is time, and it is a high time for all of us to just sit back and see how much we are updated towards the knowledge that is surrounded to us. Now I am moving up to the second session, and for the second session I invite the speaker Shri Utpal Sinha. I also invite Mr. Abhay Konodia, Secretary SXC, and Dr. Anshu Sinha, Treasurer SXC, to accompany the speaker. Please welcome the speaker with a clap. Welcome, sir, on the dais. Shri Utpal Sinha is the global head of Transformation, Wholesale leading operation at Barclay. He is responsible for Wholesale leading transformation strategies, planning, resourcing, and execution of all changes, innovatives, addressing holistic gap in operating models, processes, and technology across the spectrum of leading products. He is an expert in designing and delivering of cost-effective, high-performance technology transformation, business process re-engineering, and regulatory compliance framework implementation. He is successfully managing the LIBOR to risk-free rate RFR migration project, including the technology updates, operating model challenges, and programs are successfully delivered, required technology updates that are regulatory in the timeline. He earlier worked as a transformation-led and strategy lead international expert at JP Morgan Chase. He is an alumnus of St. Xavier's Patna, IIT Kanpur, and has done his MBA from Marshall School of Business, University of Southern California. Now I request Sir to present his speech.
All right. First of all, thank you so much to the alumni. Can you guys hear me? Working? Yeah, okay. Thank you so much to the Xavier's Alumni Association and JAI as well for inviting me to talk at this event. Really a very nostalgic feeling. The last time I spoke on the stage was about 33 years ago in 1990 when we were at a farewell speech for our batch. So quite humbled, honored, and quite emotional as well, standing here on this stage once again after 33 years. ChatGPT, so maybe I'll start my discussion with ChatGPT. And let me tell you a quick story, a very recent story from January, just a month before, when the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, he visited India, right? Mike. All right, sorry. So let me start by telling a small story about recently, right? Like in January of this year, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, he visited India. He was in one of the conferences and he came across a story from a remote village in India where a very recent software, same software, ChatGPT, that was used successfully by a software developer in one of those regions to take that software, successfully train it in one of the local government websites, which allowed a farmer sitting in a remote location in one of the remote villages to verbally instruct on his phone in his local language, and then the ChatGPT software, after translating whatever the command that the farmer was giving him, it took that data, went to the government website, completed the form, and went back to the farmer telling him it's all done, right? It all took about like a couple of months since the software was last released in the month of November. Couple of things that stand out from this story, right? Obviously, how smart the software is that it could be trained in such a short amount of time to do something like this, right? Obviously, the power of artificial intelligence that we have been talking about, that we have been hearing about, is put in practice here, basically, right? But if you think about that, that was not the most striking feature of the story, and that's not the reason I'm telling you this story. Is it working there? The reason I'm telling you this story is that, if you think about the smartness of the software, we all know AI is coming. It's not a surprise. It's only a question of when it is going to come rather than if it is coming. And ChatGPT is one of the first application or first softwares that is starting to make the inroad into that. Almost starting to behave like a human being. You can talk to it, you can ask questions to it, and it will respond as if you're talking to a human being, right? We were expecting it, not a surprise. The most surprising thing about that story is how quickly it transferred from the western coast of the United States all the way to a remote village in India, thousands and thousands of miles away, in a matter of like a couple of months, right? That is the speed of technology transition and technology advancement that we're talking about over the next decade and over the next decades, not just this decade, right? But the amount of change that we are all going to experience in every single field over the next several years is going to be mind-boggling. It's going to be a lot more than we have ever seen in the past. And it is very important that every institution, every organization, every country, every company, firm, organization is ready, including education, including the schools as well, have to be ready to embrace the latest technology in order to kind of keep up with the par, right? Otherwise, whoever doesn't embrace is going to lag behind. And it's going to happen at a very, very, very fast pace. So I was talking about the speed of technology transformation, right? Let's compare it to, if you all can see this chart, let's go back in time a little, right? In the modern era, one of the first things that we can kind of look back in terms of revolution, or when our lifestyle started to change, was starting from the Industrial Revolution, right? In the 1700s, at some point in time, right? How much time it took for the Industrial Revolution to spread across the globe? A few hundred years. That's how much time it took. But even today, it is not in all parts of the world. There are still areas, parts, regions of the world which haven't seen the benefits of the Industrial Revolution, right? Few hundred years. Next came in the 1970s, the Internet Revolution. It took a few decades, right, to kind of spread across the globe much faster than the Industrial Revolution, but still it took a few decades, right? And after that, in case of India, it's not depicted on this chart because it's part of the Internet revolution, but the real Internet revolution in India didn't start until the mobile came in picture, which was around really in 2010 to 2020, I will say about around those 10 years is when the mobile revolution literally took over India, and it transformed. Now everybody in India has a mobile phone. Now suddenly they have access to internet, and along with that, so much benefit that comes along with having access to internet, right? It changed the lives of so many people. How much time the mobile revolution took? Literally less than a decade. 6-7 years, I think, between 2010 and 2020. So as you see, there is a pattern here. Every time a new technology comes, it takes less and less amount to spread across the globe. And ChatGPT, we just talked about an example with it. In a couple of months, it's already being in use in one of the remotest part of the world compared to where it was invented or created, right? And that's so what we are going to see over the next 10 years, right? The changes that we are going to see over the next 10 years is going to be more than the changes that we have experienced over the last 100 years combined. That is how much change we are talking about. That is the speed that we are talking about of what's going to happen. This chart shows, it is not related to AI as such, but it just shows that when there is a need, we actually change, and we change very quickly. Our behaviors change very quickly. And AI and all those technologies, as they come, they will penetrate and they will force us to change. Whether we like it or not, we will have to live with that, and we'll have to change along with that, or we are going to become obsolete, right? This chart shows that this is about the e-commerce penetration in the United States. The amount of change or amount of growth that we saw in e-commerce in the United States in first 3 months of the around COVID, right, when COVID started, that was more than 10 years of growth that we saw in the US. 10 years of e-commerce growth was obtained just in 3 months because we were forced to use e-commerce as a channel because of COVID, right? And the same thing, right? And when it comes to AI and all of the other technologies that we are going to talk about in a little bit, they are going to force us to change, and we'll have to go along with that. I don't think we have an option. Whether we like it or not, we'll have to go with that. So let me, I don't think you all can read this, but this is a short poem on our school, right? I wrote it last night. Literally last night I wrote it, right? And I put it on this slide. Let me ask you guys to guess how much time it took me to write this poem. It's really good. It's a decent poem. I think it can be put on the Xavier's website, to be honest, right? And I wrote it last night. I'm not an English scholar, right? But I wrote it last night. If I ask you how much time it took, you'll probably think maybe weeks, months, whatever, like days, weeks. What if I tell you an hour? Half an hour? Oh, some people are saying half an hour. I'm not that smart to write a poem like this in half an hour. But it actually took me less than 5 seconds to do it. Literally 5 seconds. How I did it? This is how I did it. What you see on the left-hand side of the screen is a copy and paste from our Xavier's alumni website from the About page. I took one of the paragraphs from there, which talked about the school and its founding and what the values that it brings and all that. Just copy-paste, and I fed it into ChatGPT. And I asked ChatGPT, write a poem for me for this, based on this. And within 5 seconds, it produced what you see on the right-hand side. That is the power of AI that we are talking about, right? If I just simply show you this poem without any context, there is no way you can tell that it was not written by a human being, right? Now, there are a lot of discussions, there are a lot of things, there were some questions as well that is it not going to harm the humanity, right? If you think about, education as such, because we are talking about, we are in a school alumni. If you think about education, kids will have access to ChatGPT. You can't deny them. If the kids have access to internet, it's there. They can write their essays using ChatGPT. You ask them to write an essay on Indian history or analysis of something, they will go to ChatGPT and use that software to generate the essay for them. And they'll submit it. There's no way the teacher will be able to tell that this essay was not written by the student himself. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? I think we'll have to look at it. In my mind, I think it's a good thing. It's just a matter of how we use the technology, how we embrace it, and how we change ourselves. The education system itself will have to change, right? If you look at this poem here, I wrote this, right, on the right-hand side, or ChatGPT wrote for my assistant, ChatGPT wrote for me. The credit doesn't really actually go to me. The credit goes to the person, whoever wrote it, what is on the left-hand side. That is where the credit is, and that still requires somebody to think about it. That still requires somebody to kind of come up with those things, what we call prompts to ChatGPT to be able to create the poem, right? Without that, whatever, if I don't give a quality input to ChatGPT, what I'll get on the right-hand side is not gonna be good, right? Same way for the essays, etc., we still would need the students to think. And what it will do is it will allow our students, right, and not just essays, if you expand it to other things, ChatGPT can write programs, it can do coding, right? You give it, if you give it quality input, if you tell in detail exactly what you're looking for, ChatGPT is going to produce a Python code for you, right? Is it a good thing or a bad thing? I think it increases our productivity in all facets, right? Everywhere, right? As a student as well, if I'm able to solve a problem, instead of just having one essay, for example, in this particular case, a teacher can give me maybe 10 essays to do, and then I have to think about the 10 different things that I have to do in order to create those 10 essays in the same amount of time. Now think about the amount of learning, the multiplication factor that I have here. Earlier, I was doing one essay in 1 week. My learning was limited to that topic. Now I have to do the research, figure out the prompt for those 10 different topics, and I have learned. I don't have to be an excellent at writing essays, right? Right? As somebody was saying, like we don't have to remember the capital of Bihar is Patna, but when I was a kid, we used to remember 22 states, and all the capitals of all those 22 states we had to memorize, right? But we have now shifted, and we'll have to continue to shift as the new technologies come in picture, and ChatGPT is one of the examples. If you go back in past, right, think about calculators. When the calculators came in, it was also said that it's going to ruin the math learning for the kids. They didn't do that. No, it did not, right? Instead of, it helped, right? It elevated, it allowed the students to kind of focus there or use their time on more value-added functions. Instead of trying to crunch the numbers, they were able to use the time on solving, developing logic, looking at some of the complex problems, understanding how to solve it, and then being able to crunch the numbers, right? So, and same thing with Google as well. Just like I think last week, my daughter came to me with a very, very worried look on her face. Literally, and it's a true story. Just last week, before I was leaving for India, she came to me and asked me, "Daddy, how did you do homework when you were in the school? Because there was no Google," right? You see, the world doesn't exist for her without Google, right? It's impossible to live without that. Is it a good thing or a bad thing that they have access to Google and they can search for every problem or everything that they have to do? They can go to Google, search, and they have hundreds of results, and they can select from there and complete their essay or their assignment. I think it's a good thing, right? If you literally compare it to how we were educated in our generation, our learning was limited to the textbooks that we had. That is where, that was the limit, right? Everything that we did was based on the textbook. And probably those textbooks were written like maybe 50 years ago or several years ago. So our learning was not even kind of, it was old. right? Today, as opposed to that, when the kids are doing a project or an assignment, they're going to Google. Actually, they are relying on Google more than their textbooks, right? What does it do? Textbooks, YouTubes, and whatnot. It allows them access to the most recent and latest information on that topic. It allows them different views of people coming from like with varying kind of take on topics, and then it is their job to assimilate everything and come up with their own opinion, right? And they can do this much faster than what we used to do as well, because even if I wanted to do that in my era, I had to go to a library, try to read through hundreds of books, which was just not even feasible, right? So that's how I look at it. You know, education will have to shift along with the AI, ChatGPT, for example. We'll have to embrace it. We'll have to think or take it that ChatGPT is coming. There is no point trying to stop the students saying you can't use ChatGPT. I think our assignments, our way of teaching, our homeworks, our projects, our quizzes, tests, etc. will have to change in a way that it focuses on more value added, more up, you know, the functions more up in the value chain, and let ChatGPT be the assistant to do the lower level of work, which is like, you know, tell me what to do, I'll do it, but I can't think of it on my own. What do you want me to do, right? So that's a couple of things. Let me see what I have next. So now I'm going to go into, you know, some of the technologies, right? You know, there are a number of technologies which are there, which are coming up, and they are all coming up at a very fast pace, right? And I have 7 here. Likely there are a lot more out there as well, right? But these are the 7 I think which are core. And you know, the thing is, it's going to be very hard for everybody, for every organization and every institution to be on top of every technology that is out there. So obviously the key is understanding which one is going to be more impactful, more useful for whatever you are doing. If you are an education institution, then probably, excuse me, a couple of things, you know, or a few things impact. If you are in a government organization running a website, you know, then there is probably a different set of requirements and all. But understanding and knowing what is coming, I think that's going to be the key. I'm going to talk about these 7 in a little bit. But before that, one thing that I want to point out is that none of these technologies actually work standalone. Right? There's a lot of technology enhancements coming up, or advancements coming up. We hear about 5G technology. We hear about cloud technologies. You know, we hear about, you know, the blockchain and Bitcoin and all. The thing is, all of these are sort of interconnected, right? In most cases, they're all working together to deliver the value that you are looking for. Now, where you are in the food chain, like in the value chain, you'll be engaged with one or more of these technologies, right? As an end user, you'll be more focused. Most of the time, you'll actually be interacting with what is on the right-hand side as an application. The technologists are working on, but understand that the technologists are working on the other 2 verticals that I have here. And the rightmost part cannot be done, which is where the growth is going to come, right, ultimately. But that cannot be done without enabling the other technologies that we have on this page, right? And this is where, you know, the government becomes very important to enable these technologies, to enable the private sector to be able to invest time and money on these, and government is kind of creating that infrastructure and that kind of an environment to allow the private sectors to kind of work on these, right? But most of the time, what you'll be hearing about is the AI and the virtualization, the AI, the Bitcoins of the world, and all that. So over the next few couple of slides, I'm going to focus more on those the applications, but I'm going to cover a little bit on others as well, just so you all have an idea of what's going on, or what we're talking about as a whole in general. So the very first one, right? These are the, number one is the application, right? What I talked about, the next level process optimization, process virtualization, and then the other technologies, the future of connectivity and all, they all work together. Now think about we already talked about ChatGPT, but think about the process virtualization, for example, right? This is already happening. The virtualization of the processes in the physical world as well as the digital world. It is happening in both places, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. In the physical world, you'll see the robots moving around, doing things. And I don't know how many have seen, you probably would have seen videos floating around on the internet of Amazon warehouse, where Amazon has on their factory floor like this, they have hundreds of small bots kind of walking around at a high speed, doing things that they have to do. And you know, amazingly, what happens? They never strike each other. They never hit each other. They exactly know what's the best way to kind of navigate on the floor, and they're going around doing their job. And what has it done? It has replaced hundreds of manual jobs that we had in Amazon. That trend is going to continue. More and more advanced robots are going to come. And then they're going to get combined, the robots are going to get combined with things like ChatGPT. Again, integration of technologies. Think about a robot that today can walk around and do certain commands. You integrate that with ChatGPT. Now suddenly you have a robot that is walking around, it can talk to you, it can understand you just like a human being, and we have proven it can do that, right, using ChatGPT. Integrating ChatGPT will start to create a robot that is the future that we have all have envisioned, right, where a robot, I mean, we have seen it in the sci-fi movies, where a robot is there and it's taking the command, verbal command from their owners, and it's doing whatever it needs to do. That day, it's not going to happen in the next few years. It's going to take some time. All this integration, etc., it takes time, but that's the direction in which we are moving as we kind of compress and integrate all of these different technologies into one. On the digital side, I work for a bank. I've been in the banking industry for like, more than 20, 25 years. Recently, we have started to integrate what we call as digital workers, right? These are nothing but the robots, robotic process automation, where a robot is doing what a human being will do. Normal, simple processes, not complex, but simple data entries, right? Where you need an army of people sitting on the floor, taking the data and crunching it into the computer. We have robots already doing that, or we call bots already doing that, and they are digital workers because you can't see them. They're not visible, they're inside the computer, but they are basically mimicking the work that a human will do. So the robotics and those are coming. I'll also have here IoT, which stands for Internet of Things. All of our devices are going to get connected to internet. A lot of these have already happened. You probably have or will have very soon cameras that you can control from your phone. You can see what's happening in your home. You can control the dishwasher from your home. You can control the temperature of your home from your phone and all that. All of that is happening. It's midway, right? A lot of these technologies are actually already available, and more things are going to get integrated to the technology that we are talking about here. 3D printing, 4D printing, virtualization. 3D printing, let me tell you a story about 3D printing. And this is 2 years old. So a lot must have moved from then when I actually experienced it myself to where we probably are right now. The reason 3D printing has not been very, it's not out there very commonly available right now because of the cost, right? But the cost of a 3D printer is starting to come down. So I think 1.5 years ago, I was looking for a control panel for my home, right? From where I could kind of control the lights and the fans and the cameras in my own home, my personal project. So I went and bought an Amazon Fire, and I was looking for a case, a hard case that will go on the wall using which I could screw it on the wall. The issue that I had was that I already had a hole in my wall, which was slightly bigger than the case that was available in the market, right? I needed the bezel to be slightly longer, slightly bigger, so it could kind of cover the whole wall. Otherwise, it would look ugly. I searched everywhere. I couldn't find that kind of a case that met my requirements. Searching and searching, I ended up on a site called Etsy.com, where somebody had advertised that they were selling the Amazon Fire case using a 3D printer. I reached out to that guy and said, hey, I know you have this in this size. I'm looking for a slightly different with some changes to the specifications. Can you do that? He immediately, within an hour, replied back to me, yeah, here's my design document, a drawing, right, of the product. What changes you want? I looked at it, I said, yeah, I'm a civil engineer, so I could understand it. I said, yeah, change this from X to Y, change the depth, width, whatever, move the screw holes from here to there. I put on all the specification, I sent it back to him. He came back within an hour with an updated design, updated drawing, and said, is this what you're looking for? I said, yes, absolutely, perfect. Can you do it for me? He said, yeah, I'm going to put it into the printer tonight. It takes a few hours to print. I will have it ready by tomorrow morning and I'll ship it to you. And within a week, I had that product with me and I put it on the wall. It worked perfectly. Now compare it, think about it. You know, we all have a phone and probably a case in our pockets, right? If I want to change the configuration of that case, right? That case is probably being made in a traditional way. It's being made somewhere in China, in a factory in China. If I want to change the specification of that case, first of all, nobody's going to do it for one case, so I can't get it. Even if somebody's ready, or they say, I want 500,000 pieces, do it for me, it's probably going to take months, maybe a year, for the factory to reconfigure their equipment, etc., to make the case in the specification that I'm looking for. Here, compare it to so the product life cycle is going to change drastically over the next decade using the 3D printers. That technology is coming. The way we have photocopiers at around every corner, right? Now those have been replaced or added, computer printing, scanning, etc. And we have those at every corner, right? Same way, you will have 3D printers all around the blocks. And you will be able to print what you want to do for small things that you want. You probably will have a 3D printer in your home. So you won't even have to go anywhere. And anything small that you want, you'll be able to download the design from a free website, or if you're premium design, you kind of pay a small fee. You download the design, you put it into the printer, and you will have it printed the next day. Right? So that's the direction in which we are moving. The product life cycle is going to change, is going to get compressed very drastically with the use of 3D printers. And the 3D printers are not going to just be limited to making small things. 3D printers will start making big buildings in components, but they will start to be used to make big things. You know, not tomorrow, not in the next couple of years, but in the next few years. That's the direction in which we are moving. Our production, our factories, you know, all of those things are going to go through multiple changes. Virtualization. Virtualization, you probably have seen, you know, Facebook has a big, you know, that eyeglasses where you can kind of wear it and now you're in a virtual world, a 3D world. Very, very initial stages technology, not something that is mature enough, but it is out there. What we know that it is coming, right? You will be able to step into a virtual world to do multiple things. On the surface, it sounds like, what is it going to do for me, right? I mean, what is it going to do? Like, you know, what will I do in the virtual world? Let me give you some examples. Let's say on a plot, you have a plot and you're trying to build a house on that plot today, right? Today, you look at that, right? You look at the plot and you work with the engineer or the architect, and then you have, like, you know, a 2D drawing. You're looking at those 2D drawings and trying to visualize how the space will look, right? The design that you have. If you spend money, you can probably get a 3D model, but still you're trying to visualize how it's going to look. What if a 3D model could be created for you right here, where you could walk in, look around, and literally experience the kind of house that you will get if you go with that design, right? You know, that kind of virtualization that we're talking about. Think about a sporting event. Think about a cricket match, right? You know, today we watch a cricket match on TV. Tomorrow you'll be able to wear a 3D glasses, and you will be able to get right into the stadium where the match is happening and experience as if you are live. Virtual reality technology will get married to the real world. You know, that's the ultimate. That's the final. I mean, there's a lot of steps that will happen before that, but the ultimate is when the virtual reality is totally immersed and married to the real world technology, real world. And you're sitting in the stadium and you're watching the match as if you're in the stadium. You're experiencing the vibe, the noise in the stadium, everything that is happening. And hey, if I can do that, why not even take it to the next steps? What about you walking on the pitch, on the ground while the match is happening? Right? It's the virtual world anyway. You know, you will be able to go straight to the pitch where the action is happening. You can probably will be able to stand next to Virat Kohli and see him bat. You can probably stand behind the wicket and see the ball swinging. You know, that's the kind of technology that we're talking about. And all of these will have impact on the corresponding organization, right? For example, in this case, right? If you think about the sporting IPL and all that, will their ticketing revenue go down when this technology, really the mature technology comes around? I don't know, but probably, right? We have to be prepared that it will go down, right? But does it mean that that industry is going to end? No, it is not. The industry or the firms which are prepared for this change are not going to, they are going to survive and they are going to progress, right? Those that do not prepare for that, yeah, they are not going to survive, right? Because if you think about the revenue, yeah, ticketing revenue probably will go down, but it will get replaced with multiple other types of revenues, many more types of revenues than what they have today. They'll be able to charge people to come sit in the stadium in the virtual world. They'll be able to charge people to walk on the ground while the match is happening. They'll probably charge somebody to stand next to the pitch, even more, the premium ticket, right? Stand next to the pitch and watch, right? So that's the ultimate technology that we are talking about, which is on its way. It's going to happen, and the very preliminary 3D glasses, etc., are already out there. Retail industry, they'll have to embrace the VR technology as well. Right? Because there will be firms that will have the technology that, if I'm like, you know, I go on Amazon, one of the things that is very difficult is to visualize it when you are buying a clothing, for example, is how it will look on me. I can't really visualize it because it's online. If you go on a physical store, you can probably even kind of go to the dressing room and wear it. Virtual reality will allow you to kind of wear that in a virtual world and see yourself exactly the way it will look once you wear that. So it's going to impact each and every organization, industry, you know, including education as well, right? Education can be enhanced, improved so much using the virtual technology, right? People can go and experiment, do procedures and things. We are talking about doctors. We're talking about doctors being able to operate on patients while they are, while they're sitting in India and they're operating on patients who are in an entirely different country using virtual technology, because the technology will have advanced so much that I as a doctor will be able to operate from sitting in a remote location to entirely somewhere else, right? So those are the applications. That's where I wanted to focus. There are a lot of other technologies here, but they kind of sit behind the scenes. Right? But they will have a lot of implications and impact, but you are not going to see that. For example, the quantum computing, I have it somewhere here, for example, right? You're not going to see it, but it will have huge impact on the banking industry. Because if banks do not enhance their encryption logic and all that, quantum computing will be able to break the current encryption very easily. So it will have a humongous implication on banking industry, all of the cybersecurity, all companies basically, but a lot on banking industry and things like that. So let me move on. This slide just talks about, I'm going to skip this. It talks about the amount of changes we are kind of expecting from now till 2050, and most of these numbers you can see, they're like 50%, 70% changes. Now let's talk about India, and then I'll probably end this and any questions. India as such, I think among all of the countries that we have in the world, India is best placed to take the lead in this ongoing AI-led technology revolution, right? It has, it's well connected now with the mobile revolution. It has the largest and the youngest workforce in the world. It has probably the largest English-speaking workforce in the world. technically India produces so many engineers every year, right? And with the help of government, I mean, there has to be a public-private partnership. We will be able to, I mean, India should be able to take the lead and you know, be the flag bearer when it comes to AI-led technology changes over the next decade and more than that. You know, and a lot of changes have actually already started to happen. And I can see, for example, you know, the payments technology, right? Here in Patna here, there is a sabjiwala sitting on the side of the street with a QR code to receive the payment. In the US, I'm still tugging along a set of credit cards in my wallet to make payments wherever I have to, right? In the US, if I have to move money from my own 2 bank accounts, it takes me 3 days to move the money. Unless I spend a fortune on wire transfer and all, which I don't want to do, if I use a free service, it takes me 3 days. Here, I've been transferring money in my India account from one to the other for the last 10, 15 years. It takes less than an hour to transfer money. Paytm and all the other technologies that have, a lot of new startups have come up. So India, I think, is on the right track. And if everything goes as planned and you know, if India, both government and the public, the private sector, they play their parts correctly, it's not just a decade. India will take the lead, you know, for the entire century. This is not just India's decade. This actually is going to be India's century if India plays everything right. I think, yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, everyone.
It is, precaution is better than cure. Chat GPT we are talking about, and I think so it is a very good tool for the students to complete their assignments within 5 minutes or 5 seconds, as you have done, and you have created the poem. And so we have to understand one thing more, that the new education policy 2020 is talking about shunning out from the rote learning. And this is what shunning out from the rote learning and giving the space for creativity to the students. But that creativity also has to come with lot of meaningful thoughts, I would like to say. And one suggestion also I would like to add here. We are talking about lot of tools, we are talking about lot of apps, we are talking about lot of things. Every app has their own security, but we get into problem when we try to get something from the same app in an easy way by using a third-party app. So we get into problem when we use third-party app. Now the forum is open for the questions. I invite the questions and sir is here to answer. Kindly raise your hands.
Very briefly, could you explain the difference between real and virtual?
Real, we are in the real world, right? A virtual world, I mean, unless you experience it, is hard to explain. But think of it this way, right? A virtual world is something that is not real. It is in computers, it's in a virtual world. You know, when you are watching a movie, for example, for me it's a virtual world. When you are watching Avatar or any other movie, it's a virtual world, right? Today, the virtual world and the real world are separated. Tomorrow, they are going to start to get combined, right? It's going to happen in stages, not going to happen all together. It's going to happen in small bits and pieces. But ultimately, if you try to visualize, you know, if you end up in that avatar world, right, and you are navigating through that, you know you are in the virtual world, But for all practical purposes, you are actually within the virtual world, you are real, and you are navigating in a virtual world.
Here from Kerala province, I'm a communications engineer and a management systems consultant, auditor and international trainer for standards like TL9, it's a telecom specific standard. While we can feel ourselves proud about the technological innovations in India, especially in the software domain, what I feel is that we are still struggling to spread the infrastructure part of it. Telecom service providers are reluctant to penetrate into the different corners, remote corners of India. So once we achieve that status, I think we'll be #1 in the world. What are your views about that? Thank you.
And when I said public-private partnership is going to be the key for India's success over the next few decades, right? Private sector cannot do on its own, and public sector cannot do without the private sector, right? And all of these technologies that I talked about, they work together, right? Some of them government will have to enable them, and a lot of them private will have to kind of invest money and research and develop and come up with. What you talked about is the 5G technology and connectivity basically, right? The connectivity across the nation, which is key. That is one of the factors here. So the technology will be available, right? The fast-paced, the latest and fast internet technology will be available, which will allow us to be from here. If I do something, it's almost instantaneous that the action is happening on the other part of the world. Right now, today, there is a lag, right? If I do something here, by the time it gets transferred over to the other side of the world, there is a lag. So we can't use that technology probably to operate on a patient, for example. But we are coming to a stage where the connectivity will be so fast that it will be almost real time, which will enable a lot more possibilities. But after the technology is available, every country, including India, will have to make sure that they are allowing or spreading that technology, implementing those technologies in all parts of the world. So I totally agree. And that's where I think the government will have to step up and make sure that they are taking it seriously.
Energy is very close to virtual. Would you agree with that? Because you've been a science student, would you agree with this concept?
Conceptually, yes, but if you really think about it, matter and energy are interchangeable, right? So, matter is can be transformed into energy, and energy can be transferred into matter. So I don't know if I want to distinguish like that, but I know, what you're thinking. Like in the virtual world, there is no matter as such. So I agree with that, right? It's like you can't really hold something in your hand and do like this. You will be able to see, but there's nothing physical that you are able to hold in a virtual world. Where in the physical world, I can hold a pen in my hand. So I agree from that point of view, but I won't say it like matter. I won't distinguish it like matter and energy as such.
Thank you for a wonderful presentation. My name is David Clifford. I'm a professor of entrepreneurship at John Carroll University. And the ChatGPT is something that's certainly first and foremost. Last semester I had a student who at the end of the semester requested a few more points to get his grade just a little bit higher. And he was an excellent student. And I gave him a project, and I said, I would like you to create an entire business model canvas and a 2-page paper to go along with this on creating an egg farm in Honduras. He said, okay, if I do that, can I get the points? I said, yes. He had that assignment to me in 15 minutes. It was the following week that I learned about ChatGPT. So my question is, from an ethics and a moral standpoint, should we be disclosing if we're using ChatGPT as a citation, or perhaps some kind of disclosure?
So my take on this is this. There are certain institutions which are clarifying or stating clearly that you cannot use ChatGPT, right? It's written on the assignment or in the whatever, right? it's debatable whether they can enforce that or not. How are you going to enforce that, right? That's one side of the equation, is like, okay, you can't use ChatGPT, and if you somehow figure it out that the student has used ChatGPT, then you're liable to kind of take the marks off or not give them credit or whatever, take disciplinary actions and things like that. That's one side of the equation, that's one extreme. I'm not on that side of the fence, I'm on the other side, where I think the educational institutions need to embrace ChatGPT, and we are in a very early stages, right? There are students, I mean the youngsters, right? They are normally always ahead of their older counterparts, right? So even before you knew, your students already know about ChatGPT and how to use it. So it's going to be a transition period, so we'll have to kind of just go through that rough patch. But where I think we want to be ultimately is that we should clearly state that okay to allow use ChatGPT. But then the onus is on the teachers, on the institution, to kind of do the coursework, the assignments, the quizzes and tests. Part of the assignment, right? I mean, there are a couple of ways in which there will be multiple other ways in which it will evolve. But a couple of ways is that, you know, in case of depending upon the subject, right? But in case of a science or a physics or a math, you know, you are giving them assignments in a way that they have to do logical thinking, or they have to probably go out and do something in the real world to understand like how the school is constructed before they can write their assignment. And when they are writing the assignment, they are taking help from ChatGPT. Or in case of essays and all, you know, you are giving them, I mean, they will use ChatGPT to write their essays, but they will have to have some kind of they will have some learning. They will not just blindly copy and paste it, because you should be able to test them whether it has been, they understand what they have written or not. I think we should all be testing the students to make sure that they understand what they have written or not. And as long as they understand what they have written, how does it matter it came from ChatGPT or through some other sources, right? But one thing that we do know, that it increases the productivity of the students quite a bit. So the assignment that you basically, in your case, they completed the assignment in 15 minutes. You expected it to take 3 hours, right? I will say, why not give them 10 times more, right? And make them do 3 hours using ChatGPT and make them learn 10 times more. But at the end, you do a quality check when they submit, right? When they submit, there has to be a quality check to make sure that they are actually getting and they are not just submitting the assignment. That's how I see it, but I think we are in a very early stage to clearly say exactly which is the right way, right?
Hello, I am Amit from Dumka Raiganj province. I was guiding her in the preparation of question paper. She used the ChatGPT to prepare the entire lot of question paper. I mean, it was quite fast from the teacher's point of view. Again, ChatGPT owned company OpenAI is coming up with Codex, which can make up applications on its own. Seeing this, do we feel there is going to be a huge job loss in coming future? And with this, there is another thing which is coming up with the artificial intelligence. We can expect artificial emotions which is going to come up. Maybe this is the 10th JAAI Milan. 20th JAAI Milan, we can have bots sitting over here, taking the camera, taking the technology and everything. And with this artificial emotions, do we expect some kind of conflict which is going to be between human and the bots which will be there? Because if they have emotions, then the same problem may come between the computer and the human, which is still in the human versus human. So how do you feel the world will be 20 years from now and maybe 30 years from now? Because this is going to be very fast, and I mean, it will be affecting all of us, and basically the humanity to be precise.
So thank you, that's a really good question. As far as job loss is concerned, that is absolutely there. It's a certainty, it's not if it will happen, it's just that it's going to gradually happen. And you can pretty much compare it to when the computers came in picture, right? In whenever 80s, 90s, and they started to take over a lot of manual jobs, right? We saw the job losses that happened. I mean, somewhere where you needed 100 people to do something, suddenly it was being done by 1 or 2 people because the computers were doing things for you. So the job losses are coming, they are going to be there, but I actually personally don't look at it like a job loss. For me, it's like one type of jobs will go away, then it will come up. And it will be on us, on us personally, as well as government will have to make sure that they are training training the workforce on what is going to be relevant in future, right? For example, the kids who are in the college right now, right? We produce large number of engineers every day. Good, engineers are required, tech is going to be becoming more and more important. But if the engineers are not trained on the right technology, like the AI technology, the machine learning, the data sciences, and all of those new techs which are coming up, then they are going to actually become sort of outdated as soon as they come out of college or in a very few years, right? So one is that we need to make sure that in the education system itself, we are training them for the future. And second, for the existing workforce, there will need to be, the onus is going to be on the government, but also on us to keep our skills upgraded, embrace the new technology, like you talked about it, you and your wife are using ChatGPT, and that's the right way to do it, right? Use the technology to increase your productivity, and what will happen is that instead of setting up one question paper in a day, you are suddenly setting up question papers, 10 papers for that, and you can probably, instead of teaching 2 sections, you are able to teach 10 sections in the same amount of time, right? So those who embrace that and do it like this will survive. The others will lose their job because somebody will have to give, because the productivity is going to go up. But if you end up losing your job, then there will be 10 other types of jobs that will come up. There will be trainers required for ChatGPT. People, training companies will come up which will train people on how to use ChatGPT, how to create correct prompts. There will probably be consulting firms coming up, right? That consulting firms will specialize in saying, creation of prompts for ChatGPT. You tell them what you want, they will create a nice ChatGPT prompt, they'll run it and give the answer to you if you don't know how to use correctly, right? So there will be, so many other types of jobs will be coming up and will have to be prepared, right? I think there will be job loss, but job loss on one side, but there will be equal or more gain on the other side of the spectrum. And then the other thing that you talked about, conflict between humans and bots, that's a very difficult question. Honestly speaking, I don't know the answer to that. I think we are several decades away from reaching that point where the bots will be able to think and have emotions like humans so they can conflict. So I don't know how and when that will happen, how it will happen. What could happen in the near future is if people insert malicious code in the bot. Right? That's quite a possibility, just the way hacking happens today. Somebody can, they have a robot which is doing a certain thing, you bought the robot, you have it working in the home, but somebody either has already put a hacking code in there or they're going to hack it from, remotely, and they insert a code that if you wake up next morning and kill the owner. I'm just making it up, right? But those kind of things are possible because the bots are going to do what they are being told to do. Not because they have emotions and they don't like their owners, right? They don't have emotions right now at least. But it is possible that they can be instructed badly to do something that they were not intended to do, right? Hope it answers your question.
Let us have the last question.
Good flowing, as you said in your PPT. What are your views regarding the roles that digital technologies can play? How we can contribute to achieve sustainable development goals by using new technology?
Technology, you mean like less carbon emission and all that? The latest technologies which are coming up, right? Everything that I talked about, they are all going to be, in some sense, helping, right? I mean, we don't know how much energy is going to consume, right, at this point in time when the virtual technology, etc., come into picture. We'll have to wait and watch, right? But the way it's going to help the environment and other things is, think about it, right? The medical profession, for example, right? People today fly from all over the world to different hospitals, people within India, from India to the US and all that. The doctors fly for the conferences or to treat patients and things like that. Airplanes are one of the worst polluters in the world. A lot of travel will go away. There won't be a requirement to travel. Just the way today, in the corporate world, the travel has really diminished quite a bit compared to like 5 years ago, right? We used to travel so much, but now most of the things are on video conferences and things like that, and COVID has actually accelerated that. The same way, I think, a lot of other things, the travel and other things, the carbon emission, I think will decrease because of the less use of the physical resources with the use of the latest technology, because I can be somewhere else without traveling, right? And without a lot of other things that I consume when I go there and likewise. So I think it's going to help, but at the same time, I think we'll have to wait and watch how this all pans out. For example, blockchain, right? Blockchain, on one hand, when the technology is implemented, is going to help in carbon emission, because a lot of paperwork today, there are banking products like letters of credit, where we think over the next 10 years, blockchain will have a big impact, and we will, letters of credit requires today, when we do one, it's an import-export product, it takes about hundreds of pages of documents are created. So think about the amount of paper that gets printed and created and all that is consuming energy. We think that will all go away because it will all be on the blockchain. However, so that's saving energy, right? But on the other hand, blockchain in itself, the application of blockchain takes a lot of energy in different types of applications. We don't know. I don't know how much energy it will take to replace letters of credit, for example. But when you look at Bitcoin, for example, which is also based on the blockchain technology, Bitcoin takes humongous amount of energy. That's like worse. I mean, it's like absolutely pathetic when it comes to energy consumption. So that's not green at all. So it's hard to say exactly how it's going to pan out. I think it will all be balancing act. A lot of these things will have to wait and watch as it comes out. And things will improve also as we go, right? Initially, something will be consuming a lot of energy, then the more technology enhancements will happen, more efficiencies will come out, then it will decrease and all that. So it's going to be a journey, and we'll have to just move with that.
Thank you, sir. Now it is time for